Hello everyone, I'm Amrit Rajwardhan. My partner is Ima Zhao. We are a group of two. The title of our project is Vaccine. It is more closer to vaccination drive. I'm sharing my screen that has the details of it again. You can see all the details here. That should suffice. I'll switch off the video. Show a project description. Yeah, well, as you can see my screen, this is my project description. We when we met, me and Ema, we thought of making multiple projects. We thought of multiple options really, and then we fixed on vaccination drive. Basically, given the recent outbreak of COVID, we thought it would be better uh, if there is a central repository for all the vaccines present and that can be distributed to any country that requires it. And it's just not COVID that is being maintained. Our database is structured in such a way that you can add a new vaccine, add a new country, and you don't need to create a table, or the integrity is intact. Uh, there are multiple tables. I'll open my ERD to explain it better. If I go documentation, physical. Yes. So there are two entities that are completely independent of. There's one entity that is completely independent of every table. Country was recently removed from that. There used to be two. So vaccine is the table that is completely independent of every other table that there is. Country used to be, but it changed uh, midway because we had a problem of referential integrity. So as you can see, there's a vaccine table that it starts with, and country is related to vaccine. Uh, each vaccine, each country can order a vaccine from the central hub, and that goes through vaccine order, and that table has the order ID, the amount that is required, the order date, and there are more details. And then each country is divided into states generally, or provinces. So then it comes to the state. State has state ID, country ID, state name. State is always dependent on the country. Each state is further subdivided into zip codes to better manage the amount of people that have been vaccinated pertaining to one zip code, and then each zip code has a has the amount of people that are present, and these are handled individually. So you go to the last atomic detail of one person through the person table, and then user and entity are the login registered required tables. Moving on, initialize database. So recently I was working on this today, and I sent a mail to professor regarding this problem. First of all, I'll do everything and then show you that what the problem is. So I'll first try to start it, but it throws an error. Even if I try to solve, clean it, clean down directly, that's fine. Clean, okay, and then start it again. Yeah, it still fails. I've tried to, I have actually uninstalled it and then installed it again. I've tried multiple options, but it's not working for now. Given the urgency of time, I'm moving on ahead with the professor's suggestion. So I'll just show the code that we have written, and I hope that it can be fixed by today or tomorrow, and then I can upload a different video to get the full marks. We did get, let's move to section 3. We did create initialized database. Uh, in it, right? In it, this consists of all the database that there is, the tables that there are, and it drops if the uh, table exists, as it said before. And then it creates the table as and when required. Not only that, it uh, initializes it with the data that we require, so that all the integrities are maintained throughout all the whole database. Mm, there are five rows for one table. For each table, there are five rows that we have inserted when you initialize a database, and this is the code that is executed uh, after making it as a query, and we yet again uh, uh, insert into the country table, and this keeps on happening for the whole code basically. And yeah, it works. I think when Emai makes the video, his video contains a working version of this. Mm, Initialize database, show the tables or create show tables in your or workbench. Mm, Okay, we have workbench. Let's use for first. Okay. Okay, moving on, since I can't mm, execute any queries right now because it's not firing up. The whole program is not firing up. I'll try to fire it again to show that it's not working on server. Yeah, it's just the details are very vague, and this says thread local memory leak detection. I might have to reinstall everything from the start. Mm, Moving on to Crud entity one, I was in charge of multiple entities, but let's start with state. So let's start with state and how we implement it. First, we change the domain required for state. So these are the column names, the attributes for state, and these are the getters and setters for this. How we do this is using source and then just generate getters and setters, and this is used to fetch and set the data of an object that whenever a new read, update, or delete is called, so that we can get or set the data that is required. Moving on to the DAO. Yeah, this is the uh, username, the password for this, and yeah, we connect to our database using this and MySQL user password. Insert into state values. We create this is for add. This is for inserting a new value into the database. Uh, This does insert into state values, and these set string. These are adds and sets the data type for the data type for the attributes. Moving on, we have update. Update is done when you have the update is done when you have the primary keys available for that entity. In this case, we have state, and we update the country ID, state name, population, percentage, where the combination of primary keys that we have is available, and we set it again. Delete works when you give out a state ID and a vaccine name, that is the primary key, and you run the vax, you connect it to the database again, and you delete from state to state ID, and you just execute the data, uh, the query, and it deletes. Find by state name is used when we have to read the data that is we might have just put in or we are requesting to show. So it's same yet again, we connect to the driver, and user password, state ID, vaccine name, same old, and then we create as object that has to store all the values for that data so that it can be displayed in the web element. And that is what we do. We maintain a list for that, and we iterate through the list to show all the data that is available, so that if you have to display multiple things, you can do that. Find all basically select everything from mm, the table itself. It connects again, select all from state, and then it executes a query that gets all the data that is present in your table, sets it, and then displays it in the web element. Let, let me see if I'm missing something about entity one. Where you, yeah, I can't do anything because it's not working right now. This was okay. I'll try to cover everything so that I can show that uh, state exception. Yeah, this is when exception is thrown. State service. So these call the state DAO that is required, and these are actually called by the JSP file at the very start, and then it is thrown off to not thrown off to rather redirected to state DAO and find the state name, the function that is being called. Um, let's see all the service that is available. Find by state ID. Um, find by state ID, and we have the get and the post data. And yeah, it gets all the data from the front end and pushes onto the state service. Find by state name, and this goes on to the uh, the DAO that is required. Moving on. Yeah, this is just for find by one state ID. This is just for one. This is for read. We have replaced read with find by state ID. EMI has a similar way of we both have a similar way of working. So you will see find by state ID or find by vaccine name rather than just read. That is why this you see this read is wrong, because this read does not work. We have replaced it by find by state ID. For create, let's move on to create. Yeah, when we have to create, we set the state ID, and then we pass the int if it's int. We pass float if it's a float, and then we redirect it to the JSP file as a not required. And similarly for delete, it must ask only for two data, and then it should delete, and which it does. It gets the parameter and it passes to deletion. Find all. This is select all from everything. This passes on the data. This is the one that we use for user for self-testing. Basically, when the program runs, you'll see at the end that your all data is being produced here, also in the web element for sure. But for sanity, we also see whether it is been printed in the console or not. Uh, state update, and then same thing, we use two of the data to get to get the primary key that is required, and then we update everything. If you cannot, if you do not have referential integrity, the foreign key integrity, you can't enter any data. So we had to be very careful about that, and we were able to achieve that, even though adding data was really tough. Okay, let me see. Previous entity is validation. We also have a validation preview. I think when email shows, you can see the validation preview, whether it is deleted or not. It redirects to, we should have, yeah, see, this redirects to state server find all, and find all basically is select all from state. Moving on, am I missing something? Okay, I don't think so. Crude second entity. What I did was zip code. I'll try to show that, display that. Oh, let's start from domain rather than DAO. Yeah. Um, Yet again, we create all these attributes of the entities, basically the columns, and we set the getters and setters as again from source, generate getters and setters. Then we go on to the DAO. The DAO manages every function that is being called and redirects it to the right place that as and when required. We set the user and the password, and we connect to the driver and insert into zip code values. This is the query that we execute in the SQL itself, and we set in string or float as and when required, and the indexes are the one data that is goes into the question marks here. And this is just for add. This is when we have to add one row of data. This is update. It takes in two data, where state ID, vaccine name, which is the primary key. Update set state IDs, percentage name. This updates the whole data that was present. It also shows after when you update of the web preview of this thing. For delete, we have yeah, when you get here, you get zip code and vaccine name. You just need that, and it deletes the data that is required, takes the primary key. And the find by zip code basically is used for read. You get the select all from zip code by zip code. It basically just gives out the one instance if it is present. Moving on to service, zip code exceptions is for exception. Um, yeah, this service handles everything. Again, as shown in entity in Crud one. On servlet, find by zip code servlet. Yeah, this is the one where we read only one instance of the table itself when we require one data, and we create a new object for zip service, and then we find the zip code name using constant using the state ID and vaccine name. State ID being the integer that needs to be passed into it, and vaccine name is just fine. Moving on, create. Yeah, creates our data, takes in all of the data it present, converts into the required data type, and then moves on ahead. This was used for testing whether everything is working fine or not. And this just prints in the console, and then it redirects to the required JSP. Delete does the same thing, but it deletes rather than creating, and it just uses two. Uh, it just in the form we require only two text fields that are passed through this, and that row is deleted from this, and then again display the whole table using this to give a web preview of the validation, and rather than us trying to display the data, select all from state, it automatically does that. Find all is select all from state from zip code, and this all is the same thing. Find all, it redirects to displays, this redirects to here, and then finally we display everything. Let me delete or close everything. Uh, yeah, servlet update is used to update a data by its primary key. We create a form again and we get the values from the form, and we set everything that is required, and then we again display it using the zips. So let's find out. Let's show. I think I forgot to display the JSPS, JSP and the web, XML for entity one. That was state. Um, okay, state. We have this is the state.jsp. That is the initial landing page when you click on state, and then this is the one where you can see all the rows in once, basically for each uses items, and it reads through all the data that is present in the table to display it here. This does only for one list. Basically, this is called when there is only one row that we require. This is used for read, delete output. This is used for state name, population, percentage. Everything is displayed. And moving on to zip code. Zip code has the same thing. Q1 all list. Iterate through zip code all list and then display all the data that is present. List zip code does the same thing, but in this case, when we call the list has only one item, so it just displays the single element that there is. Delete output. Yeah, it delete entity. This should be code. Yeah, and this does the same thing. I don't know. This is deletes the data that is present for that element. Moving on, read output. Read zip code. It basically reads the data that is present. Zip code.jsp redirects to every place that there is. Let me show you the web.xml that has every server to go to for. Yeah, this is for find by zip code. So this is for read. This is for create. This is for state update. This is for state find all. This is for read one state. Read one instance of state. This should suffice. Let's move on to section 7. Oh, simple queries. Yeah, so simple queries are somehow we renamed it to complex rather than it's the opposite way. So the query is this that you are seeing right now, and for this the domain for wherever you need to create a domain for this, and the required attributes, the columns that is shown in the table that is here again, and get as set as shown again. Then the DAO, in the DAO we handle everything. We execute the select query that is required. And this is the exception handling for the simple query. Yeah, we take the average protection by type. So if you look into the query itself, what it does, it selects from all the vaccine where the absolute value of the cost is greater than 1,000. So it takes that value. Looking at the server, we just need one that does the job of getting the data that is required, and this this is called here, and this is called here, which shows the data as sets the data and shows the required data. And we also have complex to, yeah, We have the output that is shown in the JSP file, and this does for that. For simple queries, for complex query and aggregate queries, I combined both of them and used it uh, to to do section 7 and 8 at once. If I go for vaccine simply 3, because 3 are working, and if I go here, you can see that select vaccine name, country from where temperature is select average from. So I used aggregate function, and I made it a complex query to so that it can suffice both of the requirements at once. If I go to the domain, as you can see that we need a vaccine name, vaccine quantity, and yeah, that was the word file. Vaccine name and vaccine quantity are displayed using that, and then if you go for service, it just calls this one, and if I go servlet, yeah, servlet calls the protection by type, and then it goes, it is called again and again to finally reaches the DAO. We have the simple one. Uh, this is the JSP that has been redirected to, and no, this is the output input, and this is the output that it gets. Moving on, conclusions. Explain how did your team divide and work. So we might really worked well as a team, and we distributed more, very close to 50% of the work. GitHub contributions won't show that. I think it shows that I somehow worked less. It's because he uploaded a major file of the code. He copied all the data that was required, and he uploaded it to GitHub first, and then I had to change it to that. So that is why he must have more lines of code, but rather we actually did 50% of work, if it was not 51-49. And my contribution was two entities, two simple queries, two complex queries, and one aggregate query. During the whole project, also my contribution was that in the initial design of the project, the initial ideation of the project was done by me. And yeah, you might agree that it is a good project for two people. Consider that if we had taken another, it was going to overshoot, and there was a lot of work to be done. For three things that I learned with this project, EMI does not come from my country, so I learned how to communicate to a person with a different accent, and this was a really good experience. And I become a better communicator because of that. Secondly, I was not aware of JSP's jQueries and how the whole Java architecture works, along with Tomcat as a server. Thanks to this project, I was able to gather that info, extract that information, and have that knowledge to do that again. It's quite easy, and it has been a learning experience for me. If I had to add anything more, there's three things. It's that teamwork is definitely required, and Ema has been a good person to work with. What other functionalities would be nice to add to the system? One definitely is having a better UI, in the sense that if we could have posted to the web itself, and it can be used using uh, a proper UI, that would be nice to add to the system. What could benefit from your who could benefit from your project? I think when we created the project, we thought that one single repository can be used to create other data. No, one. Let me rephrase that. One central repository can be created so that there's a record of vaccines that is available. So it generally applies to a countrywide, uh, international level uh, benefit. I would like to say. Thanks. I really hope that I can make this video again, given that I was not able to run it today itself. I was able to run it today by 3 till 3:30. I just restarted the Eclipse because something wasn't working, and this is showing and the server started showing error for no reason. I reinstalled it. I hope the professor gives me chance, gives me time so that I can re-upload it with a working version of this, um, so that I can actually display the work that I've done. Thank you.